Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to see all of those faces, and those that we can't see the faces, it's good to see your name and know that you're here. And if you're watching the recording, then I wish you would have made the live call, but I'm really happy that you're making the recording.
We're excited about tonight's call, though. We're this is like the third time we've taught on intimacy, I believe, right? For this year? I don't know, maybe only the second,
I
but
believe it's the second.
second. Oh, it's the second. Okay, well, anyway, tonight we're going to share 4 steps to reignite intimacy. Anything you want to share?
No, not really. I think we just jump right in.
Jump right
I
on
think
in.
that well, I mean, I guess I give a little bit of intro. Intimacy is for those of you who maybe this is your first call. There's a lot of folks here that we do marriage ministry together and coach and speak and things of that nature. And then there's a whole bunch of you all that maybe you do marriage ministry too, or maybe you're here because you just want to up level your intimacy, get better in your marriage, and learn how to love each other better. And we're advocates of that for sure. And I can tell you that we've been coaching couples for some time now, about 2.5 decades.
Yep.
We've done it professionally for about 15 years, a little better, right about 15 years, I guess,
15.
pretty close. And there are 3 subject matters that come up in all of our coaching. We've coached hundreds, at least hundreds, one-on-one, and thousands, just in groups and things of that nature, tens of thousands actually. And there are 3 things that come up consistently. If they have children, if the couple we're working with have children, parenting issues come up and disagreements in styles and how they parented. So we teach on those things fairly frequently, because we had parenting differences.
No.
Yeah, we did. And then the second, not necessarily in this order, but communication, and communication is one that comes up all the time. And communication, sometimes couples they have the illusion they're communicating and they're just missing each other. And it's very interesting. We've learned some, I don't want to call them formulas, but we've learned some waypoints really on how to help couples begin to connect on their communication
Build
better
on common
and
ground.
and help them to begin to move forward and actually listen to one another instead of just batting the tennis ball back and forth. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? When there's disagreements, especially. And then the third thing, and as I said, not necessarily in this order, but almost 100% of the time, if not 100% of the time, it is in the subject matter and the bedroom. It's intimacy, which on the onset of this, let me just say intimacy extends well outside of the bedroom. I know that you've heard that before, and I know that you know that. I'm just letting you know that we know that too.
I think it's kind of interesting because we struggled with all 3 communication,
Yeah,
parenting, intimacy.
no question.
So what I love though is that I'm convinced that God gives us healing and then allows us to use the testimony, the lessons that we learned, and serve as a bridge for others to cross over from death to life. And so tonight we're going to share very transparently some of the things that helped us to reignite our intimacy, reclaim God's best for the bedroom. We promise to be tactful, but we're going to give 4
Always.
wayward steps forward, along with some questions to consider. So I want to encourage you, grab a notepad. We'll be giving you some questions for self-reflection. We're going to be giving you some self-activities as well as interactive activities that are going to lead you to be able to have healthy conversations and communication.
Interactive discussions.
Oh, yeah. Interactive.
We're not going to give you interact. That's up to you. Okay. You just handle that part on your own, but we'll give you some things to talk about. Okay.
Things like holding hands and fostering the flirt.
Okay. That's an activity. I went to a completely different space.
Well, I would not doubt that about you, Greg Gorman.
It is what it is.
Hey, so again, if you have your pen, grab a pen, grab a pad of paper. And as we start, I'm going to start with step number 1.
Take it away. Do
All
it.
right.
Let's do it.
Step number 1 is to reflect and connect. And so the idea is, I think in my journey, I had to get really honest with myself and do some reflection. I'm going to give you some of the questions that I used in my self-reflection that helped to really begin to put the way forward. So reflect and connect, get honest about your desires and your motivation for intimacy. The thing is I couldn't have Greg motivate me for intimacy. I had to have my own why. I had to get to the place where I had to decide what I wanted, and I had to want it not just for him, but also for me, for our relationship, because I believed, and the way that it all came about is God told me I was living limited in this area. And he wanted me to not live limited, to fight for his best. And so I had to get to this place of, well, what does that even look like? I asked a lot of self-discovery questions that I'm going to give you some questions if you're taking notes. So with some discovery questions, what is it that you hope for?
Could we maybe pause for just a second, David?
Okay, sure.
So when we were working through this, and these are not just, by the way, I really need to make sure that this is emphasized this evening, because sometimes I think this is mistaken, just because sometimes the way that we articulate ourselves. These are questions I ask myself as well. Now, my motives were slightly different, right? Because we were coming from sort of two different angles, which was part of the problem.
But this wasn't just my journey, in other words.
Absolutely not. And so I want to make sure, because Julie's very forthright, and when we teach these things, about owning the fact that she had a lot of things that she needed to overcome because of her upbringing and because of just her journey of life. And that is in no way meant to omit. And so these questions, I'll modify them slightly where they need to be modified as to what I was asking myself during these times that we were really doubling down and trying to make breakthrough in this. But I just wanted to emphasize that ladies, if it's ever come across, you got another one. Well, you did. If it's ever come across that, our journey of healing was all about Julie getting her journey of healing, that is just absolutely not the truth. I have had to, and have continually had to, unravel my paradigm. And men, there are many of you that were raised very similarly in the paradigm that I was raised in. And I think it's really important that we do some self-reflection, and that we own that there are some things that where we've compared, to maybe not our neighbors, like I've heard some of our clients say, well, my neighbors say that, this is how often they do it, or whatever, you know what I mean? But like, sometimes I think Hollywood sets us up for failure in this, because there's this expectation that just sets the bar in an area that is just that, frankly, it's not God's design, first of all, and probably most importantly. And so I just want to emphasize to the guys that if we're going through here, you need to be taking some notes on this as well, because I assure you that there's some things, some paradigms that we have that need to be unraveled and need to be changed in the way that we approached. And I'll lead out on this part just very quickly and just simply say, one of the biggest things that I needed to do is I needed to learn how to love my wife. And I needed to learn how to love my wife as she is, as she was in the moment, right? And appreciate her for where she could meet me, right? And it didn't mean that I didn't long for more for the two of us, right? But I had to first focus on really learning how to love her and help her heal. And part of that was in unraveling some of my own paradigms where I thought sex should be this certain way, or this amount of times, and things of that nature. So just to kind of, I guess, a quick disclosure so that the girls don't feel like we're leaving the guys out of the responsibility of what it is that we're talking about. That's in no way what we're trying to do.
So again, I grew up in a family where every abuse was present, physical, emotional, sexual abuse. And so I had a long haul, if you will, to reclaim God's best, because I had no paradigm to even begin, no foundation at all to start with that was healthy. So I took a lot of accountability. Greg took a lot of accountability, but I think that that's the point. When you're reflecting and connecting, you're looking for, what is it that I want? What
So
is
that's
it
one of
that
the
I
questions.
hope for? What is it that I desire? What is it? What do I believe God's best is for me? So that's the part of the reflection. It's, do you want more? And what does God want for you? Those kinds of things. It's getting really honest with yourself. Why would you want greater intimacy? What is the hope? And so if you're taking some questions, very simply, what do you hope for? What do you long for? What is your singular greatest desire around sexual intimacy? One of the things that I did, and this is part of the self activity, I began to ask myself questions, because if I'm going to try to fight for God's best, I needed to understand what my association was. Greg needed to do this for himself as well. But it was, when it comes to sexual freedom and intimacy, I long for what? If you could take that question, when it comes to sexual freedom and intimacy, I long for, how would you answer that in a singular word? What is it that you long for? For me, I wanted freedom. I wanted God's best. I wanted connection. Quite transparently, I wanted to not feel like somebody had their finger on my Adam's apple, choking me. I didn't want to feel like sex was dirty, or that it was just a chore or an obligation. There were a lot of things that I wanted freedom for, but I had to get to the place in my mind that I even had. So sometimes we know what we want by first isolating what it is that we don't want. And I knew I didn't want Greg to not feel satisfied. I didn't want Greg to not feel wanted. And then I really got to the point where it wasn't just about him, though. I wanted freedom. I wanted to experience what I thought that God would want for me. How would you add to that, love?
Well, my answer is, and we've talked about this before, but my answer was I wanted to feel wanted. If there was any one single request, I wanted to feel like my wife desired me, you know. And as we have worked with couples over the years, we found that, first of all, it's more common than we might know. Um, I don't like the word normal at all, because I just don't think that, I'm not sure what that even is, but what's God's best, right? But
Mm-hmm.
is really what we're running down. But that women that feel tension and anxiety around sexual intimacy is quite common. And I think sometimes us guys maybe are a little bit oblivious, and we just don't, just absolutely don't understand that. And in fact, even today, I've not experienced anxiety in the bedroom, right? So I can't relate to that in that way. But I can relate. And this is why I want to encourage the guys to make sure that you're writing these questions down, because I want to encourage y'all to take some one-on-one time with yourself and to answer these in self-reflection, and to think about what really are your desires. What is it that you really want? Um, what causes you to long for that, as Julie asked a minute ago? And what will you gain by growing in this area yourself, right? So, although I cannot, again, relate to having anxiety or feeling like somebody's got their thumb on my Adam's apple, as it applies to sexual intimacy, I can relate to anxiety and that feeling of feeling a little anxiety, or whatever you'd call that, if somebody's got their thumb on your Adam's apple. It's not a good feeling. And so I think if you look at your spouse as a human being, it doesn't cause you to long for what you long for any less, guys. But I think that
Compassion.
seeing your spouse as a human being that you can relate to, and then maybe having a little bit more patience, right?
Mm.
I think it is hyper important that as you're having this, as you're answering these questions for yourself, that you'll arrange some time to be able to have conversation around these things and begin to talk about it. But try to do it at a time when it works for both of you guys. In other words, where you're not in a spat, or you're not fussing with one another and things of that nature. You want to be able to communicate in love and compassion. And it is so incredibly important for both of you, male and female. Okay, so this is for the ladies and this is for the guys. Listen to one another with compassion and try to understand what it is their heart is trying to communicate to you.
All right.
So the first step really is self-reflection. And I kind of stretched this there for the,
Yeah, that's good
having
though.
some dialogue with one another, which we kind of talked about
But
in a
the
couple of
second part
points.
of that is, first is it's reflection. And then the second part to step number one is to reflect and then connect.
Right.
And so there were some things that I wanted to do to begin to get my mind and my body and my heart to all intertwine together as God intended to connect. And so an interactive activity that I encourage you to do as a husband and wife is to hold one another's hand. I know it sounds silly, but like these are just some simple ways to foster and ignite intimacy. Stroke their arm, lay across their chest or their lap on the couch, touch toes under the cover. Not everything has to advance to the all on out
No, but it's
act of
flirting,
sex.
you know what I mean?
It's flirting, exactly. Hug your spouse, kiss your spouse, run your fingers through their hair. Those are all ways to begin to foster the flirt, begin to connect your head and your heart together and create that connection as husband and wife.
And the more that you can do this on a routine basis, guys, be careful about your scoreboard. You know, if you've got one, chuck it, you know, because it's not a so that. You know, and look, we're all guilty, and I get it. I'm guilty too. Okay. But you really want to break that habit if you have that habit. And I'm not saying that everybody does it. I shouldn't have said that because maybe everybody doesn't do it, but I have been guilty of it in the past. And so, but I think that it's important again to be intimate with one another as your daily routine, right? Like always be intimate with one another. And if you'll take what I'm saying and not twist it, and you can hear the heart of what it is that I'm trying to communicate, it's important, you know, that I touch my wife in an enduring way on a regular basis. And wife, it's really important that you do this with your husband. We talked the last time that we spoke on the subject matter just a couple of weeks ago about how I used to come behind you in the kitchen, you know, and love on you, and you'd kind of quit, get off me, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and things of that nature, and kind of resist. And as Julie became disciplined to welcome more, as she prayed about this and God spoke to her heart about it, basically, if he would have been talking to me, he'd have been like, "What flip are you doing, dude? You know what I mean? Like, it's your wife, right?" That's kind of what he said to her. It's like, embrace that, lean into that. Why would you resist that, right? And she's done a great job over the years of really leaning into that as well. The thing that I wanted to emphasize is specifically make this part of your relationship. Now, some of y'all are more touchy feely than others. Julie and I are generally pretty touchy feely, right?
Yep.
But we have a really close friend who they've said to us, like, we've had to be very cognizant of it, particularly around our kids, because we're not really all that touchy feely,
Neither
is
one
what
of
they
them.
said to us,
Yeah.
you know?
So they have to intentionally hold hands so that their kids can see affection.
Right. But they've gotten in more of a habit and routine of that now. And so it's a little bit more natural. And so whether it's holding hands, whether it's having deep conversation, and when I say deep conversation, I don't necessarily mean solving the world's problem. I mean engaging with one another and flirting with one another and even asking, like, hey, what's God teaching you right now? What are you dreaming about right now? If money were no object and you could go anywhere on this planet, where would you go? Things of that nature, right? It's just connecting genuinely.
Right.
Cool.
Yep. All right. So step number one, reflect and connect. We gave you quite a few different ways to have conversations, do self-reflection, and then some one-on-one connection time. Step number two, challenge and release. And so by challenge, what I mean is challenge those negative beliefs about sexual intimacy. And then release any bitterness, seek forgiveness and release from any past experiences, whether from your own making, or maybe you've harmed one another in a sense and made some bad choices, bad actions. So the idea is challenge your own beliefs. I talked about how I had to challenge what I believed around sexual intimacy. So let me just repeat this very briefly. Finish this sentence. When I think of sex, here's how I would define it. Sex is when I answered that question, it was like a chore, a necessary evil,
Which made me feel like a
dirty. Yeah, that really made him feel wanted. Like, I couldn't figure out why he didn't feel wanted. And we're making light of it because of the healing that God's given, but it began with a really painful process of how do you actually answer that?
Yep.
And what I realized is that it was just amongst the laundry list of things that was unnecessary, had to be done. And that wasn't God's intent. And so I had to challenge those beliefs and ask God to change those beliefs. There were some things that in our relationship, I'm sure that along the line, I offended Greg because of those. He offended me because of his upbringing and the way that his paradigm was. And so there's a places as you're really diving in to try to reignite that intimacy where you begin to talk about the ways that you've hurt one another. And this is the part where it can get tricky because it's easy to get offended. It's easy to go right back into the thing and say, well, if you wouldn't have, then I would. And all of those accusations, remember, who's the accuser of the brethren? Certainly isn't God, right? It's the enemy. And this is an area that he wants to hit and divide. And
Absolutely.
so it's a posture of humility. It's a posture of claiming God's best for the bedroom. And so with that, it really came into the place of asking myself again, how would I define it? How do I think it should be defined? There were some things that need to be reclaimed.
Yeah. So let me just speak to the hurt piece of it.
Okay.
Particularly as it applies to if you've hurt one another. And look, there may be some people on here who have suffered from infidelity inside the marriage where there's been an affair. We have several actually, or at least a few of our coaches
Yep.
that we've trained and certified to work with couples that have overcome infidelity in their marriage and have found magnificent great healing, you know. And so some of you may have that, or it may be a porn, you know. It could be an overcommitment to a career. It could be a million different
Emotional
ways, you
affairs.
know, emotionally affairs, etc. There are lots of different ways that we may hurt one another. And so there's two things that have to happen. One, there has to be sincere repentance. I'm going to say there's more than two things actually, but let me just get this out here. One, there really has to be a very sincere apology. You look so funny
I'm
in
sorry.
relation to me, and
Yeah.
it makes me blurry.
Sorry.
So there has to be genuine ask for forgiveness. But then from the offender, there has to be more than just an asking and an apology. There has to be action. I want you to understand something real quick, if I can verbally transfer it to you, which is very difficult because you've got to really want to receive what I'm about to say. If you're the offender, if you are the one that has hurt your spouse, I want you to understand that it's not just a matter of you're asking forgiveness and them forgiving you, because your spouse may forgive you, but that doesn't mean that they trust you. Trust has to be earned. So you can be forgiven and truly be forgiven, but know that the stove's hot, and if you touch it, you may get burned again. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that because I was an offender, we didn't have an affair, but I did struggle with porn for a little while. And so I thought that my apology should be enough and she should just get over it, right? And it just, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way, you know. And it took a while for me to earn Julie's trust again. And one of the things that I think God gave me that was a great breakthrough for me was just in understanding that. And he gave me just suddenly kind of gave me an understanding, like, you know, dude, she wants to get past this too. It's not like she wants to continue to wallow in the pain. But at the end of the day, there's a wound there that needs time to heal. And so I want to urge you that, male or female, if you have been the offender, so to speak, forgive yourself, but then give your time and ask forgiveness, and then allow time. And please be patient with your spouse as they work towards forgiveness, and have open communication. You know, got to be talking about this and talking about it in such a way that you don't sling accusation at one another in the process, which means there needs to be some thought and maybe even some note taken before you actually engage in the conversation. Is that
Right.
fair to say? Did I miss anything in
No,
there?
I think that's really good. And the other
There's
part,
obviously a lot more that I could say
Yeah.
about it, but for time's sake.
yeah, the point that I think is important is this is a heart posture check again, that you're fighting for God's best. You're not looking for a way out. You're not looking to blame your spouse. You're looking for a way forward so that you can together experience what God intended for the bedroom. And I think our society has blew that up crazy, making it something that God never intended for it to be. So it's an intentional fight to fight for God's best. Even in, like, I want to encourage both male and female. what you're looking for isn't a reason to make your point. What you're looking for is a way to have breakthrough. And so it sounds very simple in nature, but what I've found a lot of times is people are always saying, yeah, but, and he needs to know, or she needs to know. And that's just not the posture that's going to give you the breakthrough.
Well, it'll
So,
stifle it. It won't happen.
right. So what happened is in our journey of healing, I know Greg took accountability for himself. I took accountability for myself. And what I wanted to do is if he made an advance at me, I wanted to welcome that advance. I wanted to connect with that advance. And so it's the heart posture. And it's okay to sometimes say, babe, not tonight. There's freedom in that, but I wasn't looking for that to be the rule. I wanted that to be the exception. So when we talk about reflecting and connecting, when we're talking about challenging and releasing, I think we have to bring in the spiritual component of it, the God card, if you will, in our own to be able to govern ourselves to say, God, what is it that you want from me? How am I living limited? Because that's the part that actually helps you to fight for the best. Otherwise, the temptation is going to be trying to make your point. All right.
And I just want to say that in these dialogues and in, because you talked about it's okay for you to say no,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But your desire, one of the things you did really well, babe, is that you began to communicate to me, I want to be able to connect with you in this way. I want to do better in this way. I'm working through some things, but I want it and I am trying, but I am struggling in some way. And of course, the next question, as you can imagine, guys, you're like, what can I do to help? Right? And so I asked that question.
Yeah.
And I think that, for a while, there were some times that you would have some answers for that. And then there was times that I just need you to be patient with me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I want to say this, and I want to say it to a group of adults. Okay. Um, there is a rhythm in this, right? You can see why I preface that way. Okay. Like really, but in the exchange of dialogue and communication and creating a lifestyle of intimacy, not a lifestyle of sex necessarily, right? Although that's part of it, but a lifestyle of intimacy of, I can remember that there was a time where if you would have said no, I would have pouted.
Mm.
But as we got healthier and we're having more, I'm going to say real intimate connection with one another, it became okay for you to say no. And I didn't pout, and it wasn't any big deal. It's like, right on, like, tell me when. And there's been times, honestly, that where I've said, yeah, babe, I'm pretty tired, if you can believe it or not. That's actually happened once. I remember that time. Anyway.
No, the idea though, there's a scripture that says to not deny one another except by mutual consent. And that doesn't mean Greg lords sex over me or I lord sex over him. We're not trying to,
You do sometimes.
well, stop, but it's trying to, it's not withholding, it's trying for the purpose of connecting as God intended, which is actually our third step. So step number 1, reflect and connect. Step number 2, challenge any faulty beliefs and release anything that's hindering God's best in your life, which brings us to step number 3, and that is to embrace God's design. So with that meant that for me, I needed to actually explore what God's design was. And the only way I could explore that in a healthy way, because the world perverts it, my family perverted it, my own stupidity
There's a ditch on
it,
either side of the road, right?
right? To the places like, okay, well, God, I don't even know what your best is. What did you design? One of my favorite scriptures, and I wrote it down, was from Song of Solomon 7:10. Now, I used to get mad at Song of Solomon. I used to get mad at sex verses. Like I was like, like seriously, I had a really disdain almost for all the verses of sex. But with this particular verse, there's something that I noted, and it's from Song of Solomon 7:10. It says, I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me. And I love this verse because it reflects the mutual desire, the exclusive bond that's supposed to be between a spouse. and the mate. Like it really is something God showed me, like there was a desire. And in that desire, there's a safety and a security. And when I began to see it in that light, it's like, I want more of that. I don't know how to get it, but I want more of it. And so God showed me what my part is. And so it was a big journey. Greg, again, was taking accountability for his actions as well. But it was a beginning to explore, what does God say about sexual intimacy? What is his thoughts? Why did he design it? Why did he create men and women so differently? Like there was almost an anger towards that, until I began to see that like sexual intimacy was just as much for me as it was for Greg. It was a different expression. It was out of an overflow of a different need, but it was actually a really beautiful thing. So I would encourage you to explore scriptures, begin to ask those questions, like, God, show me where I need to receive more, how I can interact with your best. And then here's another part again. This is where you begin to share those insights. I remember I began to say, Greg, like what you were talking about, I began to be vulnerable and say, are you at a place that I can talk to you about this? Because I want my head and my heart to connect. Sometimes they feel disconnected. And so this will help me. And I would begin to share what I was fighting for the bedroom, fighting to have a voice in the bedroom, those kinds of things. Again, very tactfully trying to share with you. Find what God's best is, and then ask your spouse, not in a manipulative, spouse, don't manipulate back. Don't use it as ammunition. Fight with your spouse for God's best. I love how there were times where it's like Greg would just simply say, how can I support you? And that gave me room to just say, tonight I just need you to hold me. I need this to not lead to anything else, but would you give me a back rub? Something along that line, like where you begin to set the set the expectation, right?
I'm like,
Lay the groundwork.
you're asking a lot of me. Because I'm horny.
Oh, Gorman. The point being, you see what I had to work with, but God healed it, healed us. But it really is being able to vulnerably share with one another.
Yeah.
And you had the ability then too to say, I just want you to want me. I want to feel wanted. I want to feel desired. So that's step number 3, embrace God's design. What would you add to that?
Yeah, just real quick before we go to 4. If you find yourself that when this subject matter comes up, you do feel angry and you do feel frustrated, or when you read Song of Solomon or any other scriptures that talk about our responsibilities, so to speak, what God's loving intent was and is for us, and you feel frustrated by that, that is a telltale sign,
Clear indication
that you really do have some internal work that you need to do within yourself, between you and God. And what I can say for both Julie and I, in our different frustrations, as we've grown more intimate over the years, I believe as God intended, talking to God, it's just like anything else. I think sometimes we could throw a prayer up, and just expect that, God's gonna, wave a little pixie dust and it's all gonna be good, and we're frustrated if he doesn't. And I want to encourage you, there's things that are serious, and we need to double down on them, and we need to pray about them, and we need to pray about them consistently, and we need to seek God. A lot of times my prayers are just very much like, God, speak to me and show me. I want what you want. I don't even want what I want. I want what you want. So help my wants and desires to come in line with what your wants and desires are, so that I can serve you well and love my wife well, for instance, in this particular area. And so anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, that if there is some angst, some frustration, a little bit of anger when the subject matter of sex, and or especially, as you're reading scriptures around this subject matter and such, that really is a clear indication that you probably need to get, God's got better for you, is what I want to tell you. I hate that you're frustrated and that this is off-putting to you, but I really want to encourage you that God has something better for you. And I think he wants to minister to you in this area, not only give you freedom, but give you peace and give you joy and give you fulfillment in this area of your life in a way that maybe you've never experienced before.
That's good, babe. So let me give you just a couple practical things in this area of reclaiming God's best. First, obviously, searching the scriptures. And then second, a self activity in this whole part that I actually did that I think is beneficial for anybody to do. God desires for me to, how would you fill that in regards to sexual intimacy? What is it that God desires for you to experience or to feel?
Give us a couple of examples, will you?
God longs for me to feel free. God longs for me to feel freedom. God longs for me to not feel like there's a finger on my Adam's apple. God longs for me to have a desire for intimacy.
God longs for me to see sex not as, how do I say this tactfully? I'm just going to say it the best way that I know how to, not just as getting off. You understand what I'm saying? But like as
Not
an
just for the physical
intimate,
release.
yes, as a connection, right? It's a spiritual engagement, actually. You know, God longs for me to have a pure heart as it applies to sex. I know that rings somebody's bell. I know there's some fellas for sure, you know, unless I'm just the moron that, you know, is the only one that has ever struggled in these areas. But God longs for me to have a pure heart towards my wife, that I only have eyes for my wife, right? And so as I begin to recognize these things and really begin to lean into and pray, God, help me in these areas, right? And help me to have a pure mind. Um, I would submit to a lot of you maybe who struggle in this area. And I listen, I'm all about accountability. Anybody that knows me and knows me very well at all knows that I am a high level of accountability. I appreciate accountability and I want things to be my fault because then I can do something about it. It may not be your fault if you've got some perverted ideas. I know I, as like many of you, were exposed to things that I should have never been exposed to on a regular basis early on in life. And there's no question that this stuff shapes our paradigm, right? But it does not have to shape it forever. It can be undone and it can be changed. And believe me, I am living proof of this because God has healed me in these
Amen.
areas for many years now. And it's been awesome and it certainly helped us.
Amen. All right. So the last part of that self activity would just be God desires. Now I lost it. Hang on. Come back to it. God intended sex to be. How would you finish that sentence? That's another great self activity. Again, showing where your heart is, maybe some of the answers that might surprise yourself with it. And then it becomes a matter of praying about it together.
Pretty revealing when you
It
answer those,
is.
isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Step number 4, commit and nurture. You know, we say this a lot, but it certainly pertains to this area. Great things in life don't just happen. We don't drift towards greatness. It takes effort. It takes concentrated intentionality. And so the idea is to commit and nurture, commit to mutual growth, commit to intentional connection, engage in activities that nurture intimacy, such as walks, music, deep conversations. It's okay to set the groundwork of saying, let's just have a connection tonight that doesn't lead to the home run. But let's connect, let's talk. Now you can always break that rule if you decide to, but whoever sets the rule, you need to honor it for the other person. The idea though is to commit.
So there's still a chance?
No, if I say it's not on tonight, it's just one-on-one connection, fun, then you have to take your mind. Now I can break the rule,
Okay.
but you can't. Yeah, no, the idea though, again, questions to consider with this. When I talk about committing and nurturing, committing to mutual growth, the idea is ask yourself, what do I need to change? What do I need to change? Not what does Greg need to, and not what does your spouse need to, but what do you need to change in order to experience more intimacy personally? And how can I be consistent in growing and connecting intentionally with my spouse? So as Greg was intentionally connecting with me, he was meeting me where my needs were. When I was connecting intentionally, I was trying to meet where his needs were. And by us both mutually preferring one another's needs over our own. Isn't that what Philippians talks about? Prefer one another's needs over your own. To look for one another's needs, look to serve one another. This is the same kind of area. So when you think about the area of what is that you want, Go back to that. What is your desire? What do you hope to experience? Why would you fight for this? Put that why in front of you constantly, and then just ask yourself, what is one activity? What is one thought? What is one conversation that I can do or that I can take in order to experience that desired outcome?
It's good stuff.
All right.
Those again are, I know a female said it. It is for male and female.
Right.
Male and female, lest there be any confusion. We're doing this because there's been some confusion in the past, and we had somebody comment on it. I'm so grateful for the feedback, like
Yeah.
legitimately so grateful for the feedback. Because I want to make sure again that sometimes, because of the type of breakthrough that Julie experienced, and because of the paradigms, bottom line is I'm perfectly willing, and certainly want to make sure that I'm covering the parts that
It's not
I
just
owned in
one-sided.
this process. It's
Right.
absolutely not, and it never is.
Mm-mm.
I felt like it was at the time, but I learned as I prayed and practiced some of the things that we talked about this evening that really wasn't. I do want to make one comment, and this is probably
And then we're gonna
primarily,
open it up for Q&A. So if you have
yes, if you
questions,
got
answers,
questions or
comments.
thoughts, yep, get yourself queued up there. It is important though, just as a best practice. You're gonna chuckle probably when I say this, but be careful not to make comments that you're going to and then not.
Oh, there is that.
There is that. And can I just plainly?
Sure.
So there were times where,
I put the flirt out there,
yes,
and
and
then there were kids, and I got tired.
or a million other things, right? And so, but if ladies, I'm just going to speak for the guys, and I don't again to make this one-sided, but I'm just going to speak for the guys on this point. If you tell your dude that you're gonna, right, and it's 6:30 in the morning, at night, whatever time it is that you retire, he's waiting, just so you know. He has not forgotten that you said that. So be careful about that. Now, I mention this just because there is this dynamic that is very real. There are times when our timing literally is just out of sync,
Right.
And so I guess my final comment on this would simply be that be careful about putting off the urge, so to speak, right? If, in other words, you feel a little frisky and you both feel a little frisky, if it is all possible to indulge, by all means, go ahead. I'm saying this because at times we have, and we've pushed it off,
And then
because
the moment left.
and then the moment left,
Yep.
and we missed it, and I think it's important again to try to meet each other where you can as often. But I did want to make sure that everybody knows, don't say you're gonna and then not. That's not,
Okay. Oh, wow,
that's just
Greg.
not cool.
Okay, there he goes.
Can I say it again?
No, you can't. We're done.
Sometimes you need to.
No, we're done. So I'm gonna unpin us now. And if you have any comments, save me from my spouse who's now abusing me in front of you. Oh, no.
You stopped doing that when we talked about it, was the funny thing
No, it
about it. I
was.
mean, you really
Hey,
did. It
here's-
wasn't intentional.
Here's the thing though, too. There's a place where scheduling spontaneity is really a healthy thing. There were times where I, in the back of my mind, reserved the day and set the intent to foster the flirt. And I followed through with that flirt in a way like it was an intentionality
Yes.
of getting my head and my heart. And there were times where I would look at Greg, and our famous like checkpoint was give me 5. And that was a permission to say, hey, I want to be with you, but I need to get some things lined up here because I've been changing dirty diapers, or I've been working all night, or this happened today, and I need to get my head in the right space. So again, scheduling spontaneity, fighting for unity, fighting for intimacy, fighting for God's best, and being able to be the one that's initiating that, not just for your spouse's sake, because it's for your sake as well.
Yeah. So listen, we talked about this tonight, and I know we've got Chris and Tina probably have a comment more than a question. We'll see. But we're going to be doing an intimacy retreat just
Right.
just over a month from now.
Woo!
And would love for any of you at a last minute here, maybe if you've not registered to be a part of this retreat. I want to tell you a little bit about it, and then Julie will tell you where you can find more information and get registered if you'd like to. I don't want to take a lot of time to do this, but I do want to make you aware of it, because if you're not scheduled and this is an area where you feel like you need up leveling and you want to be able to learn how to love each other better, I'm telling you, this is a great conference, a great conference. It's 3 days and we have so much fun. The price covers your meals, it covers your hotel, it covers all of the teaching, and it covers all of the extracurricular activities. Now, before somebody's mind goes crazy, the extracurricular activities are like hikes, you know,
ATVing.
in canyons and things of that nature. And we're doing some ATVing on the sand dunes, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous
Beautiful
area.
area.
And we literally had an absolute blast last year.
Yeah,
with
so
this
it's gonna
thing.
be over 3 days. The cost is $2,900 all in. That takes care of like all
Which
your
is a steal.
food, all your food, your lodging, and of course the conference, and then the extracurricular activities as well.
And the
So
food is not like lunch meat
Food's good.
sandwiches, you know what I mean? Like the food is all really, really top notch too. So
So
anyway,
if you
sorry,
go
go ahead.
to ultimateintimacy.com, ultimateintimacy.com / I believe it's retreats. But if you go to ultimateintimacy.com, you can do the drop down menu, find the retreats, and you'll see the dates. It's going to be March 21st through the 24th, I believe, or 23rd, something like that. Out in St. George, Utah. Beautiful place. Going to be a
Beautiful.
great opportunity for some connection and fun. And one of the things, aside from the top 3 areas that couples struggle with, one of the things that we hear universally is they want to have more fun. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for that connection, to build on your intimacy in a fun friendship kind of way as well.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
So with that, hey, let's go to the open mic here. Chris and Tina, you are the first ones with your hands up. So by all means, mute yourself. Comment, question.
Hey, everybody. Good evening. Greg, I'm so glad that you clarified activities.
Oh, Chris, don't jump on the bandwagon.
And as always, Greg, you are correct. I have a comment. And as always, you guys put it out in a fashion that's so formatted and broken down piece by piece and easy to comprehend. I thank you for that. And I just wanted to put one point out there. Tina and I, as we had our reboot in October of what, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been a journey for us, growing our intimacy, getting to know one another, to communicate. We've been applying all of these things, and it has been vastly improving, and we're enjoying that. So we thank you for that. One cap I kind of want to put on that, especially what you said last, Greg, about our spouses sometimes giving a hint and then, for whatever reason, it doesn't come about. And again, I want to be very sensitive to, as you've been saying, that it's not just the guys, not just the ladies. It's a relationship effort. But as so many other things for the ladies, generally speaking, it seems like it's much easier to turn it off and turn it on. And for the guys, this is not, guys who normally have that waffle brain, this is not one of those things. Once it's on until the pressure is let off, so to speak. And so, but on a serious note, what I want to say about that is, all of Married for a Purpose, one of the things that we've learned is that the enemy is trying to destroy your marriage.
Mm.
And intimacy is one of the things that can be the most strengthening part of your marriage. And on the flip side of that, it can also be the thing that can be very destructive if it's not given the right place of honor. And
Right.
so, particularly for the guys, once it's on, and
Yeah,
guys are very, very vulnerable to the enemy at that point slipping in. Whereas for the ladies, generally speaking, it's easier to turn it off. For guys, this puts your man in a very vulnerable place from the enemy's perspective. And so I thank you for bringing that point out, and I just wanted to make that point.
I appreciate you.
That's great.
I appreciate you talking about that particular piece of it, because you know what, we didn't talk about that, and it absolutely is relevant. It is. And so, yes, thank you for mentioning that.
Yep.
Now, in the same breath, and this is not contradictory, it's in addition to and in tandem to what Chris just noted. Laquita, by the way, thank you so much for putting that link in the chat. So if you want the link on where the Ultimate Intimacy Retreat information is, it's in the chat there. The other thing that I would say just to the guys is, don't you dare be the turd head that would ever use that as your excuse for having failed your wife.
Right.
So I'm just saying, like, I get it, and it's valid that you are vulnerable. That does not mean that you should fall prey to that temptation. And when I have dealt with guys that struggle with temptations, if you will, of many different sorts, I talk to them about exactly what I did. And one is, you better get honest with yourself and discern, do you want to win this battle or not? Yeah, somebody else. Because if you really want to win this battle, then the way that you win this battle is you set yourself up for success long before temptation comes and creeps into the picture, right? You have to have the where you might skirt the system, how you might beat the system, how you might figure out how to get away with whatever it is you might be trying to get away with, okay? And this call is not about that, but since you brought that up, and I'm glad that you did, I just wanted to simply say, don't you dare use it against your chick. Don't you dare use it against. That is chicken turd if you do that.
All right. Hey, we're getting some questions in there about the notes to the call. I want to encourage you. You can email us at Greg and Julie at marriedforapurpose.com. Again, Greg and Julie at marriedforapurpose.com. Happy to send you the notes from tonight, along with the questions for self-reflection, the self-activities, the interactive activities that you can have as a husband and wife, the 4 steps. So happy to send that to you. Also want to encourage you, if you're not getting our weekly newsletter, the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been sending out emails specifically on sexual intimacy that capture out like myths, the things that you fight for. These would have been on there as well. So
Some
make sure
really good writings too.
yeah, some really great
If I do say so.
recaps on the teachings. So make sure those are all free. So make sure you go to marriedforapurpose.com. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see where you can become a part of the community. We'd love to be able to encourage you. But if you want the notes for tonight's call specifically, just email Greg and Julie at marriedforapurpose.com and say, hey, I'd love the notes on the conversation tonight. Yeah.
Good to see y'all. Thank you for the thoughts and the questions and stuff in the chat there, and your interactiveness, for your attention the full time. We really, ironically, have loved being able to talk about the subject matter, both at the retreat that's coming up, and we did it last year, and then when we get the opportunity, God lays it on our heart as kind of a burden to begin to talk about this and do, some short series from time to time. It is such an important part. God's intention for your marriage and your marriage relationship is that you would be healthy in this area. It's part of his plan. It's part of his design. It's part of a healthy marriage. And if you're not, you need to get at it. Figure out what it is that's keeping you from getting at it.
And we have a lot of coaches too that do the marriage reboot. If you haven't experienced the marriage reboot, guys, it's powerful. It is a 2-day deep dive, one-on-one with another coaching couple, husband-wife team, that'll lead you through what it is that you want for your life, your marriage, your intimacy, your communication, your finances, your lifestyle rhythm, your faith, your career and calling. Like literally, you'll walk away with a 2-year to 5-year vision for your marriage relationship. It's powerful, and you will walk forward. No matter if you're good to great or a couple that might be in deep crises, you're going to walk away with significant breakthrough. So
guaranteed you walk away with a breakthrough. That's
any
fact.
other questions?
Nobody goes through it without it.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts about tonight, or any other questions, comments about anything?
Except politics.
No politic
No politics.
conversation.
Stick to politics. All right, great. Well, let's pray for them.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So, Father, we thank you just for the opportunity to have come together this evening. I pray for each one that's represented here, whether they just joined, so that they can come back and watch that recording, or whether they're in the whole time, God. We just pray for the marriages here, God, that are represented, the families. God, I'm just reminded that our kids even learn what it looks like to be married by watching us way more than what we tell them. It's they do what we do. And so I pray that each of us, Father, would expand your kingdom by representing what your desires are for marriage in all areas, in our intimacy, God, in our faith, in our lifestyle rhythm, in our health, in the way that we speak and communicate with one another, God. We pray that your divine wisdom, God, would just settle in our spirit and help us to learn how to love one another better. So thank you for each one here. We pray blessings of abundance of all things good from you in their marriages. Anything you'd add, sweetheart?
No, just Father, bless them, keep them. I pray, Father, that you would encourage them. Let us be
Yes.
united with our spouse.
Yes.
Be best friends with our spouse,
Mm.
not turn on one another, but God, grow our friendship with one another as you intended. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Bless y'all. Thanks for
Hey,
attending.
real quick, this recording, by the way, we'd love for you to find us on all of our social media. So you can go to Instagram. Everything is Married for a Purpose. So the YouTube channel, this recording will be on there on the YouTube. So it's YouTube, it's Married for a Purpose is our channel. Instagram, it's Married for a Purpose. Facebook, it's Married for a Purpose. So by all means, the website's Married for a Purpose. Anybody have a question about the name of the ministry? Married for a Purpose. Okay. By all means, find us there. There's a lot of different resources. We're passionate about restoring God's intent for the family. And we're looking for other people who share that passion. So if you have a passion to restore God's intent for marriage and family, we encourage you to reach out to us, schedule a conversation about how you can get more actively involved, whether it's to be a small group leader or maybe even become one of our coaches as well. We'd love to have that conversation with you. So with that, God bless you. And we'll see you in the first and the third weeks now of every single month for right now are going to be when we host the calls. Okay. God
Bless
bless
y'all.
y'all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Welcome.